welcome everybody. I am Tammy Cody with SketchUp for Interior Designers and Cody Design Studio. And today I'm talking to Sumele. And for those of you who don't know, Sumele is this year's SketchUp scale figure. A scale figure is included in each template in most of the templates in SketchUp. So when you start a new file, there is a person standing next to the axes. And Sumele is this year's scale figure. Many people don't realize that the scale figures that SketchUp includes each year are a real person who works for SketchUp. So today I wanted to get to know Sumele a bit, and so that we could all hear a little bit more about her life at SketchUp, her life in general. So thanks for joining us, Sumele.
A pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you could make it. It's the afternoon for Sumele. She's based in London.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And it's morning here for me. I'm in California. The pleasure of Zoom. So I guess first off, Sumele, how do you feel about being SketchUp famous and being in everybody's new file in the 3D warehouse, standing next to everybody's model, that people that leave you in the template as they draw?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mind walk in my view. So I trained as an architect here in the UK, and I started using SketchUp pretty soon into my learning career and work career. And you'd always see a scale figure. So to be in it a decade plus out is pretty weird, but very cool. So I'm grateful. It's an honor to have made my way into the product from using it. I think it's pretty cool. It lasts for a year, but you will always be the person in that version. So I think a bit of me is like captured in the DNA of SketchUp now. And that's very, very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're always going to be in the 3D warehouse standing next to a ton of people's models. I mean, people just leave them in there all the time. So that's fun to see it pop up when you search for a chair or a sofa or whatever. Yeah.
And to virtually be across the world, I think SketchUp is very likely in every continent. Actually, it is in every continent, but maybe not every country. I think that's still pretty cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, totally. So this scale figure, and I'll put one on the screen at this point, but this scale figure is probably one of my favorites. Don't tell Josh.
I will not.
So it's so neat the way they did your dress. You can tell where the seam is and the fabric kind of meets where the dots. You can just it's a really subtle, artistic piece there. And so who drew your scale figure?
It was Sarah Winstead, our head of products at SketchUp, and she took the time to actually look at the details of the photo I sent her. It's an actual dress. It's right here. Here we go. So it's
awesome.
Fabric selected by my mom, and I designed the dress and got it tailored. And so you can see those lines where they meet, and she did take the time to show every single detail. And I thought that was cool. But the reason why, so when she drew it initially, I think she just drew it as a yellow dress, and I had to say to her, this fabric is representative of my heritage. So I'm Nigerian, which is in West Africa, and this fabric itself is called Ankara. And it has lots of graphic, bright, bold designs. And I picked that dress because I wanted a bit of my heritage to show up in the scale figure. And she just was really, really fantastic at being super detailed and adding the color and the vibrance back into the model. So I'm super grateful to you, Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. It's well done. I love the dress and the story behind it. And you designed it. That is so cool.
I like to dabble. If I'm not making buildings, I'll do a dress.
Nice. So what is your role at SketchUp? What's your role on the team?
So my title is Senior Strategic Marketing Manager at SketchUp. Essentially what I do is I take my understanding of the industry and my knowledge of architecture and interior design and take that into the team and try to really personify the people we're trying to serve. And so I'm thinking about, who's doing what work in industry and how do we capture those successes? How do we tell the stories of our customers? How do we make their journey through the SketchUp lifecycle and through the SketchUp like marketing platforms, so the websites, our documents? How do we make sure that it resonates with them? How do we speak their language? And a lot of times I'm trying to make sure that I'm helping our team do better work. So if it's kind of pulling together assets like documents, PDFs, or trying to think through how we communicate with our customers when they land on our website, and trying to kind of just make that experience much better for our customers. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what I do.
Yeah.
Let me want more detail, but it's not.
No, that's amazing. I'm happy if you elaborate too. So it's so interesting because SketchUp is it kind of has its own personality. And so it's interesting as you kind of move into this new phase of being with Trimble. And is it tricky to kind of maintain that funky SketchUp? It almost has like this dry humor.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like this interesting personality that's super fun, but also part of a bigger company that isn't necessarily on that same vein. So is that part of what you think through, or not as much?
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. So SketchUp has a really fun, youthful vibe and is the friendly, knowledgeable friend at every party, right? Yeah. Trimble is the older brother who's like, this is how we do stuff in the world and we get things done beautifully. But we connect across the globe. So Trimble is a larger entity, is very established, adds a lot of gravitas to the brand that SketchUp already has. But you're right. You literally hit it on the nail on the head. My job is to straddle those two worlds, the SketchUp that everybody knows and loves, but also the SketchUp that can serve really large projects and really complex projects. I mean, they don't need to be large, but they could be very complex. It could be a small, bespoke home that has tens and thousands of details that somebody's thought through. But SketchUp has the capacity to handle detail and scale. And so my job is to kind of help people see that duality, that SketchUp is easy to use, easy to learn, easy to kind of hit the ground running with, express your ideas, not kind of get stuck in the rigidity of this wall is here and there, but like really express the breadth of design and kind of iterate and test stuff and change stuff. But also when it comes to actually delivering construction drawings, it has the rigor to deliver that. And it just depends on where you are in the website life cycle. And so my job is to kind of capture those two bits to show the rigor that goes into being a designer, but then also capture the creativity of a designer. So the things that I write or the things that I create, the way that we speak as a brand is trying to make sure that we show that we embody that duality. I know for a very long time, SketchUp was a free product, so a lot of people kind of attached to it this the idea that it's light and not very, very rigorous, but actually it is. And I know a lot of designers use it way past just concepting and take it all the way through to delivering drawings and getting on site and all that kind of stuff. So my job is to kind of do that work and show people it's capable. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Awesome. Can you tell us a bit more about your life outside of SketchUp, about your family, about what you like to do, your free time?
Yes. So I am pretty young, I'd say. So I like to do fun stuff, like sit at home during the pandemic. Unfortunately, we've all been stuck at home for the past year. Yeah. I think it was just the day before yesterday it literally marked a year since the UK went into lockdown. And so lots of reflecting on how we've used that time. But it's been great to kind of pull back from the manic life that people can end up living when you're always on the go. But I do have a husband, a very lovely husband, and two little sons, twin boys. And so we spent the past year just being in each other's pockets, literally. So we've done lots of planting. We had our first harvest of Scotch bonnet peppers. We do lots of homeschooling as well, games. But before the pandemic, baking, of course, baking, banana bread, like always, banana bread.
Banana bread and sourdough are the pandemic baked goods. Yeah.
Nice. Did you say sourdough?
Well, sourdough. Here in the States, everyone all of a sudden was making sourdough at the start of the pandemic. That they were all Instagramming their sourdough creation. Not me. I didn't. No, I don't bake.
So yeah, I in another life I run like a baking business alongside like professional work. So it was nice to kind of whip out the tools and get the boys like stick their hands in, make some lemon drizzle cakes and things like that. Really yummy stuff. Yeah. But before that, I mean, I love the galleries. I love to see art. I love to kind of explore London. There's so much to see. The riverside is gorgeous. And I have like family across the UK as well. So visiting people and just enjoying, a break from the reality of the city of London. Awesome. In my spare time, I take on design work and I do kind of small projects and help people like convert stuff and imagine how they might extend their houses, that sort of thing. So I'll maybe take on 1 or 2 a year and kind of get my design fix whilst I work at SketchUp as well. So
that's great. Kind of stay current in your practice.
Oh yes,
that's great.
You'll get rusty.
So looking forward, talking about kind of coming out of the pandemic, next year is Base Camp in Vancouver. Are you going to be at Base Camp?
I should be Vancouver in April. Yes, I can't imagine missing it.
Yeah. So I'm curious about scale figures in the past and how you feel about kind of being a likeness, such a large likeness in SketchUp's, marketing and just our everyday SketchUp use. Are you nervous at all about the fanfare at Base Camp, or is that not as big of a...
I imagine that by next November, which is when Base Camp is supposed to happen, there will be a new scale figure. There will be lots of like buzz around that person as well, and we can all celebrate them and being the face of the scale figure in 2021. But I think it's an honor. I think it's I'm not nervous per se. I've always been within the marketing team, so always talking to customers and engaging with people. So I think that's still going to be fun. And the SketchUp community is fantastic, diverse, interesting people from all walks of life. So I'm really excited to kind of have those conversations when we do see in person again. Maybe shake some hands and get some hugs in there with my colleagues and stuff like that. So
absolutely. Well, I can't wait to meet you in real life then. It'll be fun to see you there. So were you nervous about becoming the scale figure? And I guess on the same vein of question, with everything that had happened, I mean, it's been happening, for the last years, but more recently, folks, people who shop at stores or who frequent certain businesses, they just use companies. They expect to see more diversity, and they get frustrated when they don't see diversity in diversity in race and gender and sexual orientation and thought. Were you nervous kind of coming into this year being having your likeness be such a representation in SketchUp?
So when I got asked, and I did get asked, I wasn't kind of forced into it. I was asked by my team if I would be okay with being the next scale figure. I did have some reservations. Of course, we were in the middle of an upheaval, a global upheaval. With all of the happenings of 2020 with George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, and even more recently this year with the kind of sentiment towards Asians in America and all of that kind of stuff. It's not particularly new, but I also understood the import of the timing and how sensitive a time it was to be the face in the product. And so I had to think really deeply, but the honest truth is that if I'd said no to it, it would be a lost opportunity for others who are coming behind me to see their likeness. And I think I know representation is super important. So for me, when I was growing up, my parents were fantastic in sharing my history, my heritage with me, and making me understand the breadth and the richness and the dignity that comes with being a Black African woman. So my parents are from two different ethnicities. And so each of those ethnicities has its own history, its own, the weight of its own history. And I was able to absorb the beauty of both of those things. So in my dad's culture, the Shakiri culture, women are respected, their voice is heard. And so I was taught never to kind of subvert my voice or to, cower, to use it wisely, of course, but to use it, right? And then on my mom's side, she's from the Yoruba tribe. And that was a whole kingdom in itself. And so there's a rich heritage of like royalty and exploits and culture, art, all sorts of things that are kind of embroidered into that heritage. And so all of those things are like behind me, carrying me. And so I never had any sort of shame or fear attached to my heritage or my person or my identity. And so I think I was lucky in that regard, that I didn't need too much outside representation to kind of go for it, and to reach high and to push to my full potential, which I haven't even scratched, if I'm being honest. So there's lots more to do. There's always so much more to do. But there are people who have not experienced that richness, who don't have that weight of history kind of carrying them forward. And so for me, I think it's important to kind of step forward when you have the opportunity, take that opportunity and do what you can with it to be a blessing to other people and help them see themselves in better places. And so, when I was studying architecture, I was very, very, I could count the number of girls that were on the course. After the first year, lots of them dropped off. So I've always been in like situations where you're not a majority. Like when I moved from Nigeria to the UK, I was never the majority. And so I had to kind of hold on to that history that I had, but I didn't have that much representation, if I'm being honest. Now, I think there are a lot more people kind of coming into their own. You have like Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who's like the head of the World Trade Organization. She just took that role this year. You have Madam Vice President, where she is today. And I think we all have to take that stride forward when we have the opportunity. But you can't just do it by yourself. You need people to kind of put you in those, like make that room and that space for you. And I think the beauty of SketchUp and the kind of experience I've had with this team in my professional life, I don't know that I've had it anywhere else in the same way that I've had it here. So although I'm a minority at SketchUp, and even at Trimble, the entire organization is focused on the value that each person brings to the table, as opposed to what you look like, what you sound like, And I think there have been people who have had to facilitate creating that room for me to be myself and to bring my best self to the table. And although I was asked last year to be the scale figure, it turns out, I then found out that about 4 or 5 years before I was asked last year, somebody had already put my name forward and a conversation had already been had. And this person is not a minority. They're a regular person. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but these are the people that when they take a step, when they speak up, when they do something, it creates the room for others who might not have the voice that they have to have that space to be themselves and to put their best on the table. And that serves everyone. It serves the company, it serves your colleagues, it makes your community richer. So I guess my takeaway is that when you can be a voice, use it. Be that voice, make that space, create room on the table. There's more than enough world to go around. And I think I'll finish with saying, each person has inherent value. And when we start to recognize that each being has inherent value, we will treat them with honor. We will value what they have to say and what they have to contribute, and make room for that contribution, because it makes the world stronger. So I appreciate everyone who's kind of made room for me, still speaks up for me, kind of, keeps doing the work to move us from where we were and where we are today, and are still making room. So our CEO, Rob Painter, is really pushing Trimble-wide diversity, inclusion. There's just so much work going on behind the scenes that we're seeing, the ethnic minorities, or people of different sexual backgrounds, or all sorts of initiatives going on at the moment that we see, and it's true and it's real. It's coming from a real place. So you can't, if you're the minority, you can't be fooled into thinking somebody's supporting you when you know they're not. And so we can see that effort, and I appreciate the fact that everyone's speaking up. Forget the fact that a lot of companies kicked into gear last year. I think it's more important that they're kicking into gear. I wouldn't criticize anyone and say, why didn't you do this earlier? Why didn't you? You're doing it now, and that's what matters. As long as it stays a consistent and concerted effort, then we're going to see the change in decades to come. So
yeah, thank you for all those thoughts. That's I guess we're wrapping up here, but yeah, I guess that when I first saw the scale figure, those were kind of my thoughts. Are they thinking, oh, now you're just barely joining, the team of diversity now that you're feeling the pressure? But I appreciate you saying it's like, no, you were tapped for that, quite a while ago. It was kind of in motion. And that it's been on their minds and they've been moving in that direction actively.
I didn't know. I actually didn't know until last year, but to have found out that it was actually in motion much longer before that made me feel seen.
Yeah.
And I think it's more of a thing of let your work speak for you. I don't feel like a figurehead, because I know that my work is valued beyond just me being a Black woman who's representative of a race or a face, or a badge on Trimble's or SketchUp's chest. I know that I'm regarded and loved, and the work that I do is valued. So
absolutely,
that makes all the difference.
Wonderful. Well, on that note, I'm looking forward to seeing the lineup for Basecamp next year, seeing some more women, and tech we're still in the tech world, even though we're in this like design, and we're all in tech. So I know that can be tricky, and I'm looking forward to seeing, and even, the fireside chats coming up and Basecamp next year. I'm excited to see even more diversity of thoughts and experiences. And so thank you so much for joining me, Sumele. Hope you have a good rest of the week, and I'm looking forward to hearing people's comments and questions about the interview if they have any. And thanks so much.
Thank you, Tammy.